Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. We are here to talk about Everton's managerial situation. We're going to go through a load of the candidates that have been rumoured to be interested in the Everton job over the last sort of week or so. Obviously, it's nearly been a week since Marco Silva lost his job last Thursday, so it's been 6 days, and in that 6 days we've had quite a few managers that have been thrown in the hat to potentially take over from Marco Silva. Some show, I think, what fans would say is a load of ambition from the club and something that we'd really like to see. And some really don't show ambition at all. And some are simply just names that have been thrown in there randomly, I think, just for the sake of it. So we're going to go through all of them today. We're going to go through all of the ones that have got substance to them. And we're going to also briefly talk about the ones that, have been thrown about in the air for quite some time now, even when Marco Silva was manager of Everton Football Club. However, haven't quite been rumoured an awful lot since he's lost his job. So I apologise, I'm a little bit late. I had a couple of issues with the audio, so I had to turn the system off and turn it back on, etc. But we're back, we're live anyway. Firstly, before we go into talking about any potential new Everton managers, I just want to say Everton Football Club have announced that Duncan Ferguson will be in charge of the first team for the game against Manchester United on Sunday. I think this is really positive. It's quite clear that the football club haven't come to a decision on who they want to take over permanently, obviously taken over from Duncan Ferguson. So I think it's really important that they come out at this stage, obviously a few days before the game, a couple of days before the press conference as well, and state that, Duncan Ferguson will be taking charge of another game. They were massively impressed with how he and the team performed on Saturday against Chelsea, and they've got confidence that he'll be able to get us something against Manchester United at Old Trafford. So I think that's really important. That's the biggest sort of bit of solid news coming out the football club tonight, is that Duncan Ferguson will be taking charge of the first team against Manchester United. Let's hope that he can replicate the performance. Let's hope him and the lads, he can replicate the performance of last Saturday against Chelsea. Really good performance, really gritty, really hard work, and loads of passion, loads of fight, loads of urgency. Let's hope that we can put a similar performance in against Manchester United at Old Trafford. If we can get a result against Manchester United at Old Trafford, if we can get a win against Manchester United at Old Trafford, then maybe Duncan Ferguson's name will be thrown on this list as well. But I haven't included it today because I want to purely talk about some of the managers that will be coming in from elsewhere that obviously have been massively rumoured with moves to Everton. So thank you all for getting involved in the live comments as per usual. If you're enjoying, please do hit that like button as well. Let me just tweet today's team out so I can get that out the way and sorted, so we know that's live and everything is all good. The microphone's in the way, so I'm just gonna have to move the head a little bit there, just so we can get it out the way and out and done with, so I don't have to halfway through the stream think, oh my god, I've got to tweet the stream out. Give me just 2 seconds to do that. Get your thoughts and your comments in the live comments as per usual as well. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. It literally only takes a second and it will massively I'd massively appreciate it. So really do.
Without promotion, something terrible.
Hang on, that's an advert. That isn't what we want, is it? That's not what we want. Give me 2 seconds. Go away. Right, sorted. All systems go. There we go, sorted. Happy days. Right, let's go. Let's continue. Let's get into the managerial discussion then. Before we dive into it, I'm going to read some of the live comments. Hernandez says, hey Cam, hope all is well. Are you revved up to watch Big Dunk running down the sideline as we beat Man United this weekend? All the best, mate. Thank you very much. All the best to you. I'm not too bad, mate. And I am. I think it's really important that the club have come out and the club have made this announcement, because it's become quite clear that over the last 24 hours, with all of the various different names that have been thrown into and at it, it's quite fitting that this situation is happening in December, because it really is like an advent calendar with Everton at the minute of managerial appointments, because every single day there's a new, manager that isn't just rumoured to, be interested in the job, but, certain journalists and certain companies are going as far as to say, it's almost guaranteed that this person is going to get the job, and it's a different person every single day. So it's very fitting that it's in December, because it is like an advent calendar. So I think it's important that the club have come out and basically said, listen, we're not going to have anyone in before Sunday, so we're boxing this off now. Duncan Ferguson will be in charge of the game on Sunday, and that just alleviates the stress, I think, from a lot of Evertonians, and alleviates the stress from the boarders to say, right, okay, well, at least we've got the first team boxed off for Sunday's game, and we've got Duncan Ferguson working with the first team as well. Jared says, some sources say he has agreed to join Arsenal. Hope it's shite. would love to see him here. Other sources say that Arsenal aren't interested in him. I assume you're talking about Carlo Ancelotti. Obviously, the title is, will Carlo Ancelotti be the next Everton manager? We're going to talk about Carlo Ancelotti in just a second. He's somebody that I would love at Everton Football Club, and somebody that I think is probably the front runner in the race to become Everton manager, alongside another person that we'll talk about in a second. And for me, it really, really does show two sides of the scale. Carlo Ancelotti being the side of the scale that's massively ambitious and what we all want to see, where the board discussion and what we all want to see going forward, and the other side of the scale is something that I think 99.9% of Evertonians would be massively disappointed with if this manager was to become appointed. And I'm sure you know who it is. It's David Moyes. We'll talk more about David Moyes in just a second. Goodson said, "Hey Cam, glad that Dunk has been given the United game, and the board aren't rushing an appointment. They need to get this one right. Spot on, mate." Wallpaper Flembot says, "Like that your teams doesn't clash with Toffee TVs. It doesn't today, obviously. They seemed a little bit earlier on." Alex says, "Yes, Cam, yes, Alex." Goodson says, 4 points from the next 2 games, and we'll all have a very Merry Christmas. We will do. Eugene says, "Duncan Ferguson will be the next Everton manager now. He will be on Sunday. He won't be for the foreseeable future. I don't think." Alex says, "Ancelotti. Yeah, I'd love Ancelotti. I really, really would." Craig says, "Carlo is the only used to managing elite clubs with elite players. That's why I see Moyes as the more realistic option." Maybe, potentially. Eugene says, "After the Man United game, Duncan Ferguson might get the Everton job for good." I think it'd take a couple of more games and a couple of more really good performances. Everton FC is the best as Eugene. I doubt that. He said himself he doesn't think he's ready for it, and he will manage Everton for as long as they want. He did. Paul says, "I'm not sold on Ancelotti, mate. Seems like another Pellegrini. Why not give Dunk a go?" Fair enough. Couple of people not sold on Ancelotti, it seems. Jared says, Kovac would be good. Would be a good selection. Croatia played some good stuff under him. Whoever comes in, Big Dunk must be number 2. He is no doubt a future Everton manager. We'll talk about Kovac in just a second. David says 6 more wins and we're safe. Let Dunk go through Christmas and then see where we are. Fair enough. Fatal Shot says Ancelotti will be a great appointment for us. I agree. Cheng Tosin says Duncan's at the wheel. Paul says, "At least it's not porn that came on there, Cam." It was a YouTube advert, so thank fuck it was a YouTube advert and it wasn't something else. I apologise about obviously the YouTube adverts playing out blatantly loud there. I didn't mean that, obviously. Good Soul says, "I'm honestly undecided on who I want as Everton manager. Just want to show some passion that we showed on Saturday." Spot on. Great speech. He says, anyone other than Emery. Fair enough. And Chapper says, "Fuck me, with those adverts I thought I was on porn for a second." I think they were advertising a bank or something weird, but yeah, there you go. Anyway, let's get into the managerial discussion. It's going to be a really, really in-depth stream today. Probably going to be a really, really long one as well, so take a seat, get yourself a drink, get yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, a couple of biscuits, whatever you like. Share the stream on all of your socials as well, and make sure we can get as many people in here as possible, and do leave a like if you have enjoyed. So I think it's only fair that we start with the 2 front runners, because everybody else working down the list, there's less of a reason as to why they would become Everton manager. There's a couple of names on there that since making the list have come out and said that they wouldn't be no longer interested in the job, or they're massively appreciative that the interest's there, but they're going to stay where they were, and we'll talk about them in a second. So listen, let's talk about Carlo Ancelotti firstly, because he is the name of the title. Obviously the title is, will Carlo Ancelotti be the next Everton manager? It's a rumour that's been around now for a couple of days, obviously boosted by the fact that he was sacked by Napoli last night after their Champions League game, despite the fact that they won, despite the fact that they've made it through to the next round of the Champions League. I think they currently sit 7th in the Italian league, if I'm right. And Carlo Ancelotti was sacked, or could they come to an agreement for him to leave the club, whatever you want. And I think that only boosted obviously the situation regarding him and the potential move to Everton Football Club. And there's been a lot surrounding Carlo Ancelotti over the last 24 hours and surrounding Everton Football Club. Now I think it's important that we also understand that Arsenal are after a manager, and I think that's what a lot of Evertonians were thinking when we were reading some of the stuff about Carlo Ancelotti, and when we started to understand it. We were all sort of thinking in the back of our minds, well, if it's Everton or Arsenal, if it's London or Liverpool, he's already managed in London before, it's the capital city, he's probably going to want to go there. But according to Sky, and according to many journalists as well today, Arsenal wouldn't be interested in a Carlo Ancelotti type of manager. So that really does leave Everton. Sky have reported over the last 24 hours that contact talks are set to begin this week, more specifically this weekend, between Everton and Carlo Ancelotti. Obviously, like I said, he was sacked from his role as Napoli manager yesterday. He's left the club, which makes any managerial appointment an awful lot easier to make if they're not currently under contract with somebody else. It was also reported very, very recently over the last couple of hours that Ancelotti would be open to discussions to become the next Everton manager, and he would be open to coming over to the Premier League and managing, which is obviously really, really positive news as well. Let's just talk about the manager himself for a second. He's got an average of around 57% of win rate. He's won 19 trophies in his managerial career, including 3 Champions Leagues. He's won the Premier League, obviously, with Chelsea. He's won the FA Cup with Chelsea. He's a 2-time world's best coach winner as well. Now, there is a lot of Evertonians, a lot more than I first expected, to be honest, on Twitter, that and seemingly in the live chat as well. And if you are one of these Evertonians, please do let me know, and let me know your thoughts. That don't really seem too sold on the idea of Carlo Ancelotti, and I think it's because, you know, as Hernandez says in the live comments there, quite rightly so, Carlo Ancelotti is a manager that is used to managing big named players at big named clubs, and by big named I mean players that are already on the brink of becoming world class or already very, very good title winning players. Now, a lot of people, including myself, would argue that we haven't got that type of personnel at Everton Football Club. A lot of people would also argue that Carlo Ancelotti's never really managed a situation like that we're currently in. Now, I understand, obviously, we were in the relegation zone at this point last week. We've got one really, really good win against Chelsea, and all of a sudden we've jumped out of that relegation zone, and we're now only a couple of more wins away from again challenging for that top 6, and that might be why Carlo Ancelotti has a little bit more of a look at this, because he understands that, right, okay, if we lose a couple, we can be right back down there, but if we win a couple, we can also progress quite heavily as well in the Premier League, because that's how the league is running this season. I think, obviously, when Marco Silva was sacked, and before Marco Silva was sacked, when it became quite apparent that Marco Silva wasn't going to keep his job, and that, you know, he wasn't, you know, good enough to take Everton forward, I think a lot of Evertonians were quite persistent and quite insistent, including myself, on bringing in a winner, somebody that's been in this league before, somebody that's proven they can win trophies consistently, and Carlo Ancelotti is exactly that. Now, when you look at football, and you look at managers, and you look at bringing in these winners and these managers that have, you know, won multiple trophies at multiple different clubs over their careers, you don't tend to get a manager that's done that, as well as being able to lift a club out of a situation that we're currently in, aka, you know, some would argue battling to keep our place in the Premier League. Obviously, Rafa Benitez is an exception, done it with Newcastle, and he's won multiple trophies over the other clubs that he's been at. We'll talk about him later on in this team as well. Carlo Ancelotti hasn't. Obviously, he's been at these clubs where, you know, they've had world superstars, the likes of Bayern Munich, the likes of Real Madrid, the likes of Chelsea, and he's won all sorts there. And I think it's massively hard to look at Carlo Ancelotti's CV and not want him to be the next Everton manager, even though he hasn't really got the experience in a situation that we're currently in at the moment. There's also, you know, a couple of Everton fans that aren't seemingly happy with the way his career has ended at all the clubs he's managed. Obviously, he's being sacked from Napoli now after winning a Champions League game and taking them to the next round. It usually only lasts around 2 to 3 years in management, and I whilst I understand that, and I understand this is a big project and it's going to take more than 2 to 3 years, and, you know, we need the manager that's going to come in and sacrifice his future for the club. If you were to say to me, right, okay, you're bringing in I don't know, let's say an Eddie Howe or an Unai Emery who's on the list, and they're going to be here for 5 years, but they're not going to win anything in that 5 years, but, you know, they may have the potential to win something after that. Or we're bringing in a Carlo Ancelotti who's only going to be here for 2 years, but in those 2 years you're going to win the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, and you're going to be, you know, challenging for the Champions League with a load of new fresh players. And that's what we also have to look at, I think, and somebody mentioned it on Twitter earlier, I didn't get the name, so I do apologise, but I think that's something that we also have to look at with Carlo Ancelotti, is the level of player that he's going to be able to attract. Being the name that he is, like I said, the 2 times world best coach, 3 Champions League winning medals on his CV, a Premier League on his CV, managed in England, managed in Spain, managed in Germany, managed in Italy, and he's been successful in all of those different places. Now, despite the fact that it might have ended poorly, you can't really disagree that he hasn't been successful everywhere he's went, and you have to think about the level of player that would come with that type of manager that's been successful. If we're looking at, you know, boosting our squad and bringing in these top players that are going to take us to that next level in the near future, these top players aren't going to want to come in, with all due respect, and play under a David Moyes or a Eddie Howe, or, you know, a couple of the other names that have been mentioned, Victor Pereira, who obviously isn't in the running now, but we'll talk about him because he was a massive figure in the running. They're going to want to come and play under the likes of Carlo Ancelotti, and what I don't want Everton to do is to go, right, okay, Carlo Ancelotti might not necessarily fit where we currently are now, and then, you know, go with the manager, win a couple of games in that honeymoon period, get out of where we currently are and be sitting in around that top 10, top 8, where Carlo Ancelotti may have been able to do something, and then Ancelotti goes to Arsenal and then ended up flying up the top of the, you know, the table and beating everybody in this side. That's not what I want, and I think it really, really is tough to look at Carlo Ancelotti's CV, his previous experience, and think, well, if he's on the plate to manage Everton, we're talking about ambition as a football club, and we're talking about we want the very, very best managers, and we want the managers with the most ambition, and we want the managers that are going to come in and going to be able to, and I've got the experience of winning things. And whilst I understand that Carlo Ancelotti's got the experience of winning things with players that have got the ability to win, you know, trophies and to win Champions Leagues and to win leagues, I think it will be. I don't know whether I agree with the concept of bringing in a manager that hasn't got that, but has got the experience of playing with the quality of players that we've got. Because if we bring in a quality manager that's got the experience of winning trophies with quality players, then surely the next step is to add quality players to the squad. And I think if you're looking at bringing in quality players, the things they're going to look at is who's managing the team, where about the team is, you know, and the project. And I think Carlo Ancelotti would be a big positive for that. Now, like I said, I do understand some of the worries and some of the reasons behind them, but every single manager that I've got on this list now currently, and there's about 10 to 15 managers, every single one comes with negatives, comes with things that people would go, well, I don't really know about, you know, I don't really know whether I'd go for that, or I don't really know whether I'd be interested in him because of X, Y, and Z. And, you know, if you're looking at Carlo Ancelotti, he definitely does top the list. And for me, if we're talking about ambition and wanting to go out there and get a proven manager, you know, Carlo Ancelotti, at the end of the day, below anything, is proven in the Premier League. He's won a Premier League with Chelsea, he's won an FA Cup, and I believe he's won another trophy in the Premier League as well. I can't remember whether it was a Carabao Cup or a Carling Cup, whatever it was, or another FA Cup. And he's also done that in multiple other leagues as well. Now, yeah, he hasn't worked with the level of player that we currently have, but he's still a fantastic coach, and I don't think there's any disagreeing with that. So here's my pick, to be perfectly honest with you. At the minute, when you look at some of the names on the other list, you know, I think it's quite clear as to why he's my pick. Whether there's a potential whether we'd bring him in or not, whether he'd come or not, you know, apparently, again, we're reading things now off Twitter, and we're reading things off social media that are coming from the likes of Sky Sports. Now, 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, you might have took what Sky Sports says as gospel and said, oh my God, well, Sky Sports said he's interested, so it must be interested. Whereas now, I look at what Sky Sports say and I think, I'm not convinced, to be honest with you, because I honestly think that a lot of what Sky say are purely just to boost their odds for Sky Bet. And I honestly think that we'll wake up tomorrow and Sky will have thrown another name in the hat who will never be interested in the Everton job, never want the Everton job, but they'll throw him in the hat, so people bet money on it and they make money on it. So it's difficult, really. I know a lot of people are still under the impression that Carlo Ancelotti wouldn't come to Everton and that he'd obviously go to Arsenal over Everton. There has been a number of journalists who've said that Arsenal wouldn't be interested in Ancelotti. Whether that would change if they knew that he could potentially come to Everton, and again it'd be another top quality Premier League manager, top quality manager in the Premier League. Sorry, that wouldn't be managing Arsenal. Maybe that would change their mind. I don't know. But we can only go on what we've got. Now we can only go off what we're seeing and what we're reading on social media, and that is apparently that Everton are massively interested in Carlo Ancelotti. He leads the list as to potential managers to take over at the club, and Carlo Ancelotti would be open in coming to Everton as well. So let me know your thoughts on Carlo Ancelotti. Let me know your thoughts on whether you believe he would come to Everton firstly, and would you be happy if he did? Would you? Obviously would back him. I think would back any name on this list, even the names that we don't particularly want. But let me know your thoughts, and of course in the live comments. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your comments in the comment section down below. It'll be massively appreciated, and I'll be getting involved with as many of them as possible. If you're watching live, please do hit that like button. It means a massive amount to me, and if you're new to the channel, do subscribe as well. It literally only takes a second. I've got some boss new graphics coming as well. Joe, who does all the graphics for the channel, has sorted us out with some fantastic new graphics, so got some of them coming over the next couple of days as well. And get the video and the Steam Live shared all over your socials as well, and get as many people in as possible. If you could, that would be very nice. Yeah, thank you very much. Anyway, moving on from one front runner in the race to become the next Everton manager to another front runner in the race to become Everton manager. I think these two are probably leading it at the minute, and these two are significantly, there's significantly more rumours, there's significantly more interest, and I think there's significantly, the club are wanting these two more than they're wanting a lot of others, and obviously the other is David Moyes. Now, like I said at the start of the scene, for me, tweeted it out earlier today, one, in Carlo Ancelotti shows a massive amount of ambition and where we want to be. And ideally, if you'd have said to any Evertonian 2-3 weeks ago, right, Marco Silva, leaves the football club now, what type of manager you want to bring in, would have said a proven winner, somebody that's going to show the ambition of the football club. Carlo Ancelotti is exactly that. To a manager that I think a lot of Evertonians, if not the majority of Evertonians, would be fair to say unhappy if he was to come in, and that is of course David Moyes. Obviously managed Everton for 11 years, left the football club in 2013 to go and manage Manchester United. Didn't work out for him there, hasn't worked out for him anywhere since leaving Everton Football Club, or since leaving Man United, should we say. Obviously being sacked in Spain by Real Sociedad, West Ham as well didn't work there, Sunderland as well, getting them relegated. So David Moyes, as rumoured by the Telegraph, is also a massive front runner in the race to become the next Everton manager. I would have thought this would be Bill Kenwright who'd be pushing this one and wanting this one, but apparently Farhad Moshiri is quite is quite up for the idea of bringing David Moyes in. They've prepared an offer for David Moyes, and he's being spoke about at length, according to Jason Bear from the Telegraph, who is quite a reliable source, one of the sources that announced that Marco Silva had been sacked before the club officially announced it themselves. So apparently David Moyes has been not only discussed at length, but there's been a offer prepared as well, and I think the club see him as a fallback option to if we don't get Manuel Pellegrini. Now it's important to understand that fallback options tend to be fall from graces. They don't tend to be managers that are within the same ilk of the person that you're going for. Firstly, for example, Liverpool's fallback option, if you didn't get Jurgen Klopp, was Frank de Boer, who again has ended up not doing an awful lot as manager. But I think David Moyes is probably one of the biggest fall from grace fallback options when you're looking at, Carlo Ancelotti as potentially being the future Everton manager, and then you're thinking, well, if we don't get Carlo Ancelotti, who do we get? And it's David Moyes. Now, this is something that has seen massive uproar on Twitter, massive amounts of uproar. I don't think I've seen an Evertonian yet say that they'd welcome David Moyes back and they think that he could do a good job in the long term. I've seen a couple that have said if it was on a short term basis, then potentially. But I've seen a lot of people say, if you're going to bring David Moyes in, you may as well keep Duncan Ferguson in. I don't want David Moyes as the next Everton manager. I think it shows a massive lack of ambition, and I think it shows, more importantly, that we've not really gone anywhere since David Moyes left. David Moyes left in 2013. That's nearly 7 years ago. Obviously it's 6 years. It'd be 7 years in May. And it would show that we've not really gone forward since then, that we're resorting back to the manager who left us. And let's be perfectly honest, has not done anything since he'd left us. I think it'd be a different story if David Moyes had gone to Manchester United, won the Premier League, maybe won a Champions League, and then gone to another massive club and won trophies there. But he hasn't. He failed at Manchester United, he failed at Real Sociedad, he failed at Sunderland, he failed at West Ham. Why is he now good enough to become the next Everton manager? Why, if Carlo Ancelotti is on the list and is potentially good enough to become the next Everton manager, why is David Moyes on that list as well? Now, I understand it's a fallback option, and that Farhad Moshiri and the rest of the board are sort of taking into consideration that David Moyes knows the club, or is said to know the club in and out, and he'll probably bring in Tim Cahill to be his assistant, which will sweeten the fans up, no doubt, because Tim Cahill's an Everton legend. But for me, listen, I just don't want David Moyes. I really think it shows a massive lack of ambition. I think he'd be able to stabilise us, don't get me wrong. I think he'd be able to stabilise us and get us out of this situation and get us, fighting in and around, the top 10 to maybe the top 8, 7. But I really don't think he'd be that manager to take us forward. And I think if David Moyes is appointed as the next Everton manager, I'd really seriously be looking at going at this board and hopefully, it's never going to happen, is it? Because they're never going to sit down with me, but I'd really love to sit down with Farhad Moshiri and Bill Kenwright and Denise Barrett-Baxendale and say, right, well, literally, your quotes in the last AGM at the end of last year, where we want to be challenging for the Champions League, we want to be challenging for Premier Leagues, we want to be going into this new stadium with a vision of that we're going to be one of the biggest clubs in world football. Why have we now resorted back to a manager that left us 6 years ago? That's done absolutely nothing since leaving us. Obviously, I'll never get to have that conversation, but it'd be very interesting to hear what they have to say. Whether they then say, well, he's coming in on a temporary basis, or he's brought in to stabilise the club, and then we're looking to move him on, like a little bit like we did with Sam Allardyce. I don't know, but I think it's fair to say that, as well as Carlo Ancelotti, David Moyes is another front runner in the race to become the next Everton manager. The Telegraph running this story massively. You've got Sky running the Carlo Ancelotti story, and you've got the Telegraph that an insistence on that. David Moyes is a real target, and that the club have discussed them at length, and that there's an offer being prepared for him. And whilst that worries me slightly, because I think if there was an offer prepared for Carlo Ancelotti, or if there was discussions, he would potentially take a little bit of time out, and he would have to think about it, and he would would say, well, okay, maybe I want this, maybe I want that, whereas I think David Moyes would literally accept whatever's on the plate because he's got no job, he'll be getting paid massive amounts, and it brings him back into the Premier League. But I'd rather take the extra time and pay the extra money and get a proven winner in Carlo Ancelotti, in my personal opinion. Right, before we go on to talk through some of the other contenders, everybody else has sort of been thrown in there, like I said, in this whole advent calendar situation where a new manager's thrown in there every day. We're going to talk about the majority of them in just a second. Let me get back in the live comments because I don't want to miss anything, of course. If you're enjoying the team, by the way, please do hit that like button. It means a massive amount to me. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Hernandez says, Carlo is a fantastic coach, but I'm worried that several world-class players at his previous jobs have complained about how bad his training sessions would be first job, where he must develop players. Potentially, yeah. I think he'd be very, very good for the likes of a Moise Keane. Obviously, speaking Italian, coming over, the coaching staff he'd bring over. But, you know, there is, don't get me wrong, there is worries about if Carlo Ancelotti come in to become the Everton manager. And there's always that speculation of, well, okay, you know, anyone could manage Cristiano Ronaldo, or anybody could manage, you know, world-class players. Didier Drogba in his prime. So, is it really, you know, the manager that's done that? And there's been that argument with Pep Guardiola throughout his career is, well, is Pep Guardiola really that good of a manager because he's managing the best players in world football, or all the players just good enough? And I suppose we're not really in a position where we can be a tester club. We're not really in a position where we can be an experimental club. But I suppose it would be an experiment for Carlo Ancelotti and everybody else to see whether he could come into a club that has got, let's be honest, average to good Premier League players and turn them into players that are good enough to play in the Champions League and good enough to be winning trophies. But I'd rather have that than a manager that we know is not good enough to win trophies or not good enough to take us forward, and that's sort of what the rest of the managers that are on this list are talking at the minute. There is positives, don't get me wrong, but you know, if you were to say Pep Guardiola comes to Everton tomorrow, you could also say, well, he's never really had any experience with you know, dealing with this sort of personnel, these sort of players that are naturally world class and naturally massively talented. But I think we'd all still take, you know, Pep Guardiola tomorrow. So I do understand it, and I do understand the fears. But for me, I would like Carlo Ancelotti at Everton. Paul said Saturday was unreal. I want more days like that under Duncan. Yeah, of course. Listen, I think it's important that we don't take away Saturday from Duncan Ferguson. It'll never be taken away from him. He said that himself in the post-game interview. You'll never be able to take that moment away from him. And I think that's completely fair enough. And obviously, he'll manage the team on Sunday, and let's see what he can do away at Manchester United. And I said this last week, is that Duncan Ferguson goes out and gets a result against Manchester United at Old Trafford, and then we beat Leicester in the Cup the following Wednesday, then I think Duncan Ferguson will seriously be added to this list, although he's not got much managerial experience. If we can go out and beat three of the best teams in England at the minute, and you know, one of them being away from home, being Man United, who are on absolute fire at the minute, then it'd be silly for him to not be in that conversation. Hernandez says, also Ancelotti hasn't come to a club where there is no Champions League and no world-class players. Fair enough, just spoke about that. Goodson says, just another vanilla European manager, needs someone with a bit of personality who gets what the club is about. Fair point, fair. I assume you're talking about Ancelotti there. Lavid says, personally, I think he would choose Arsenal. Foreigners tend to like London. His credentials speak for themselves, but my instincts say Duncan Ferguson. I think he would, but apparently Arsenal don't seem to be interested. That's what we're reading anyway. Paul says, I'm not sold on him, mate. He's got the Mourinho feel about him. What's his motivation for coming to Everton other than money? He just said the damn money. Lavovich says, strange 3 weeks ago, I would have said Carlo, but we've seen Big Dunk in action and now he's ticked a lot of boxes. Fair point. A lot of people sort of aiming towards Big Dunk even now. Eugene says, we need to get Pochettino as the new Everton manager. I don't think he'd come, to be honest with you, mate. We'll talk about him in a second though. Lavovich says, I would only accept a new guy if Duncan was number 2. Fair point. I think if Carlo Ancelotti was to come in, he would probably bring in his own backroom staff, but I dare say Duncan Ferguson would be a part of that, as he has been with all of the previous managers. Gord says, do you think Adrian Heath is on the shortlist for the next Everton manager? No. Mark the Narc says, can't see us getting Ancelotti. Fair point. Goodson says, it's okay having a long-term plan, but we need a springboard with a top manager, even if it's only for 2 to 3 years, then we can attack world-class managers and players. Very, very fair point. It could be the turning point in the clubs, in the club, in terms of obviously going forward. Hernandez says, also feel the thought of Marcel Brands' vision of the club and development of young players would definitely differ from Ancelotti's vision. We would want to bring in worldies as opposed to youth, and that's really, really important as well. I'm made up. You've brought up Marcel Brands there because it's really important that whoever we bring in is willing to work with Marcel Brands and is willing to work with the director of football and discuss their visions and work on where the club's going and taking the club forward, because it's absolutely no point in bringing a manager in that's going to say, well, I don't want anything to do with Marcel Brands and I don't work with directors of football, so I'm not going to have any sort of communication with him, because that's not why we've brought Marcel Brands in, so it'd be absolutely pointless. Gerard, but that I assume that will be all in the negotiation discussions. Gerard says we can't go down the same road by looking at how we have had our time up and coming managers. We need to prove managers time for the board to act. Spot on. David says Brands didn't want Silva sacked. Ken Wright and Machete obviously disagree. Doesn't bode well for a quick appointment when they took 5 hours in a meeting to sack Silva. Agreed totally. Fatal Shot says the thing is we need some class players. Because we don't really have any class players at the moment, so I think Ancelotti would be a great choice in that aspect. I agree, and he says his number 2 should be Big Dunk. Lavit says Moyes would work a miracle. Moyes worked a miracle last time out, but I would vary on his backroom staff. He never got his number 2 right after Irvin left. I agree with that one. Hernandez says someone send Machete a link to the Sunderland Till I Die documentary on Netflix, so we can see what potentially could happen if we bring Moyes in, as we could realistically still get relegated. Fair point, spot on. Paul says I think after Saturday and seeing how garbage Watford, Norwich, West Ham, etc. I think we'll be 100% fine. I think David Moyes for 6 months will be a complete waste of time. Fair point, and I don't think we want David Moyes on a long term, so maybe no to Moyes altogether. Lavin says under Moyes, after Irvin left, we just seem to be over defensive. 2 more games than we should have won. Spot on. David says Arteta for me. Dunk said that he's not ready to be a manager yet. Only thing we can get Mikel before the summer. I don't think we will get Mikel Arteta before summer, and to be honest with you, I don't think Mikel Arteta will come to Everton at the minute. Gord says thoughts on Adrian Heath's manager. He manages my local club Minnesota and made them absolutely crap to a very good team within 3 years. It's totally different, obviously, managing the Premier League. I don't think he'd be in the running for the manager. Maybe if he come over to Europe and manage, they'll come over to the Premier League and manage somebody other than Everton, maybe in the future, but I don't think, well, I know he's not in the running for now. Arteta when he says, hello Cam, hope you're doing well mate, I'm not too bad mate, hope you're doing well yourself. I'm running a bit late, but in my opinion Ancelotti, although not a perfect manager, he's a once in a lifetime appointment for us and it will be fantastic for us, I agree. Wallpaper says Brands didn't want Silva sacked. Is that a worry? He could not see what was going wrong with Silva. Brands didn't want Silva sacked, I believe, because he's not a fan of chopping and changing without massive reason, and some would argue that there was massive reason, and I don't think he also wanted them sacked in the middle of the season, but you know, that's his thoughts. Arteta when he says, as for fans abuse, he can get the first flight out of Liverpool and never look back. Fair point. So I suppose the general consensus definitely in this team is that, you know, Carlo Ancelotti will be welcome despite the fact that there is worries, and nobody wants David Moyes. If you're not enjoying the scene, please do hit that like button. It means a massive amount to me. I really, really would appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe as well. It really does mean a massive amount. So anyway, let's go through some of the other managers that have been rumoured to potentially take over from Marco Silva over the last 2 weeks. So Victor Pereira, obviously, last night or the night before, ruled himself out of the job. Seemingly was on the phone to Sky, despite the fact that Sky reported the day before that he could potentially be in charge for the game against Manchester United on Sunday. I don't really know how somebody can go from potentially being in charge in a couple of days' time to not wanting the job and happy where he is. Again, Sky bet, Sky trying to make money, I don't know. But Victor Pereira was, you know, irregardless, he was a he was a massive name in terms of obviously taking over from Marco Silva as the manager. He was massively rumoured. He'd been rumoured for quite some time. He was rumoured when David Moyes first left the club to take over before Roberto Martinez. Pereira obviously managing in China now on a massive wage. Come out, said that he was massively honoured to be in the talks, massively honoured to be considered for the job, but he's happy where he is, and he's not going to leave. So basically, I wanted to talk about Victor Pereira because, you know, like I said, Sky were reporting that it was, you know, probably going to be him and that he could even be in charge for Sunday, until he come out himself and said, no, I'm not, you know, I'm massively flattered by it, but I'm not going to take it because I'm happy in China. Unai Emery is another massive one that's been on the list over the last couple of days. Again, one of them where you wake up and it's a new manager, and this time it's Unai Emery. Unai Emery has said that he was expecting to take a little bit of a break from football, expecting to take a little bit of a break from the Premier League. However, he would definitely be interested in an offer from Everton. He'd definitely be interested in talking to Everton about the potential managerial role. Everton have considered Unai Emery. Whether or not they'll make an official offer, whether or not they'll go any further than just a consideration, obviously is to be seen, but it's interesting that his name had been brought up. Just to touch on Victor Pereira, his record speaks volumes. I don't think he'd be good enough for Everton Football Club. I think it'd be a very similar appointment to Marco Silva. You know, okay at times tactically, but not good enough to take us forward. In terms of Unai Emery, it's a difficult one. Obviously, he failed at Arsenal. We're looking at a manager that has taken Arsenal to a Europa League final. However, ultimately this season, the results were not good enough. But when you sort of take away the Arsenal factor, and when you stop looking at his Arsenal career for a second and you look at his career at Seville, he won consistent Europa Leagues. I think he won 3 Europa Leagues in a row for Seville, which is a fantastic CV. And like I said, if you take away the Arsenal job and what went on at Arsenal, you'd look at Unai Emery and you'd say, you know what, I'd massively take Unai Emery before Marco Silva was given the job, before Unai Emery was given the job at Arsenal. I think a lot of Evertonians wanted Unai Emery in, so it's very clear to see the Arsenal job has tarnished them a little bit in regards to whether Evertonians would want him or not. I know, I would assume, and I personally would want, Unai Emery over a couple of the other names that are on the list, David Moyes being one, Victor Pereira being one as well. But with things going, so bad, so recently at Arsenal, I think that's one that, again, a lot of fans are a little bit, tedious with, a little bit unsure about whether he'd be able to come in and he'd be able to lift this team forward, because Arsenal, very similar to Everton, is a team with very little leaders, a lack of communication. So I don't know whether Unai Emery would suit us. Jorge Jesus was first rumoured just before Marco Silva was sacked and straight after Marco Silva was sacked. However, he has said that he's happy where he is at Flamengo. Very similarly to Victor Pereira, he said, listen, I'm massively honoured to be a part of that discussion, but I'm happy where I am and I'm staying at Flamengo. Marcelo Gallardo, who is currently the River Plate manager, again, massively rumoured to become an Everton manager. He was somebody that I think a lot of fans, he's probably the manager that the most, that doesn't make sense, but the majority of fans were happy with, and I think there was less negatives for Gallardo in becoming the next Everton manager than there is even for the likes of Carlo Ancelotti, who's a proven winner in Europe. Obviously managing River Plate over in Argentina, and a manager that shows immense amounts of passion, wears his heart on the sleeve, very similar to how Big Dunk managed the other day, and I think that really resonated with Evertonians, especially after the game on Saturday. And obviously we know we need a manager that's going to come in, going to instill that passion, going to instill that mentality, and that what it means to be the Everton manager and what it means to play for Everton for those players. However, he's come out today actually and said that he is staying at River Plate again. Similarly, he's happy to be in that conversation, but he is staying at River Plate. Marcelino as well, who is ex-Valencia, his name's been in there again purely just that Everton may look at him. Apparently over 100 managers have put their names in the hat for this job, so like I said, it's literally a new one every day, and I've not gone through all of them, but I've gone through the ones that I think have got the most sort of had the most media attention over the last few days and weeks, and Marcelino is barely making that sort of argument, but highly doubt he's going to be the next Everton manager. Before we talk about the last few, I'm going to dive back into the live comments. Like I said, Marcelino, is a decent manager, managed at a decent level before. I don't think there's any chance of him coming over to Everton. I don't think there's anything in that. I would have liked Gallardo because of his passion, but obviously he's happy where he is. Similarly to Jorge Jesus, he is happy where he is. And Victor Pereira, I think, is one that a lot of Evertonians were very, very happy that he's come out and said he's happy where he is, because I don't think many Evertonians wanted him. Paul says, what has Arteta done apart from putting out the cones for Pep to say he's a top manager? Fair point. Arteta said, as for fans, they're a massive reason, but in Marcel's eyes, he needed more time as a manager, who he waited for, in my opinion. Obviously, that was what Marcel Brands believed. David says, nothing, but he's learning from one of the best. If Howard Moyes accepted in the conversation, why not Arteta? I agree, spot on. Arteta Money says, this is why I don't fully buy into the Ancelotti talkers that come from Sky, who are actively found conning people out of money in Sky Bets, but Sky as a company is shocking and have their own agenda, spot on. And that's why I'm trying to not get as excited about it and just trying to report, what the rumours are, because, again, when it comes from Sky, there is quite the chance that it's a load of shite. Hernandez says, go to him at Swansea with Bob Bradley, or he was known in England as Soccer Bob. Now he is doing extremely well in the MLS. Will take a while before another American is considered in the EPL. MLS manager, fair point. And Goodsall says, no to Pereira, as you say, mirrors what mistakes the board have already made. Exactly, and I think a lot of this is sort of smoke and mirrors at the minute, and a lot of it is sophistry. Is the board that, names are getting thrown out left, right and centre as X-manager and Y-manager, and you've got top managers like Carlo Ancelotti who are in for the job, and other managers that you think, what, like Victor Pereira and David Moyes who are considered, and I think a lot of it is smoke and mirrors for the board to sit back and go, well, you know what, okay, a lot of it is testing the waters. I would assume they're going to say, well, okay, maybe David Moyes is in the conversation. Let's see how the fans react. See every single fan say no. That was one of the big reasons as to why Farhad Moshiri didn't appoint David Moyes a couple of years ago, I think, when Ronald Koeman was sacked. Is because of the fans' reaction and how the fans would feel with that appointment. And I assume this is what they're doing now as well. Good source says, it's great that Big Dunk and the team have bought some game time. They've rushed Moyes in if they've lost against Chelsea. I can't help but agree. Paul says, I hate Sky and BT, or as I call them, Red Sports. Exactly, spot on. Anyway, moving on, talking about Mikel Arteta. I think it's only fair that we talk about him now. He's I think he's a manager, or he's a person. He's not really a manager. He's an assistant manager, but he's a manager. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. That's been in the conversation because obviously of his ties with Everton Football Club previously, playing for Everton for quite some time. Some would argue he's an Everton legend. Again, one of those players that, a little bit like David Moyes, tarnished his legacy with Everton by the way that he left and the team that he went to, and the way that he behaved after leaving Everton Football Club, very similar to David Moyes. Obviously, he spent the last 4 years, I believe it is, 3 or 4 years, working directly next to Pep Guardiola, who we know is one of the best managers to ever grace the earth. One of the best managers in world football, being his number 2. I think he'd only managed 1 game for Manchester City when Pep Guardiola was unavailable. But there's absolutely no doubt as to that Mikel Arteta would have learned an awful lot from Pep Guardiola. Now, whether he's learned enough to be able to come into a side like Everton, who are currently fighting to keep our place in the Premier League and fighting to, gain some stability and gain some, decent, a decent run of results and a decent run of performances, I don't know. But I think without doubt he would have learned a massive amount from Pep Guardiola, and I think he would be interested in the Everton job. I think Mikel Arteta will probably take a step back and look at this and think, I don't want to make that move now, purely because A, he's a member of Pep Guardiola's coaching staff and he doesn't know where Pep Guardiola is going to be towards the end of the season, because I personally can't see him being at Manchester City, and B, because he probably has looked at the job, understood that it's quite the big responsibility, and maybe doesn't quite fancy that responsibility just yet. Obviously not managing a club before ever, maybe he wants to go and managing the lower leagues in England, or maybe the lower leagues in a different country before he steps into Champions League football at a club with massive amounts of expectation. Pochettino's the next on my list. Rejected an official approach, as we know. Just to touch on Mikel Arteta, in my opinion, before we move on to Pochettino, it will bring a feel-good factor back to Everton because obviously of his connections with Everton, but I think there's a lot more negatives than there is positives, and I think those negatives are largely based around the fact that he's never managed a football club before. He's got no experience managing a football club, and he's got no experience over in managing a team that are struggling and a team that need to gain some stability. I don't know whether Arteta's the manager that could come in and give us stability. Pochettino obviously rejected an official approach, again done fantastically well at a Tottenham team, a manager that you would potentially look at and think would, pretty much be ideal for Everton. Turned, I'd say, an average Tottenham side, a Tottenham side full of average players, into a good top 4 competing Tottenham side, the Champions League finalists side. Obviously, he didn't win anything with Tottenham, which is the biggest negative. But anyway, he's rejected an official approach, and I don't think we've got in for him since then. Eddie Howe. I've just put Eddie Howe on the list because he was rumoured. He always is rumoured whenever Everton are looking for a new manager. And I've literally just put next to him on my notes, no, please no. And I've spoken about Eddie Howe a lot recently, and I've spoken about Eddie Howe since Marco Silva's lost the job and before Marco Silva lost the job, because I think it's the easy option for the board and for pundits to go, well, what about Eddie Howe? He's a manager that deserves it, a chance at a bigger club, deserves a chance at a club with more ambition. He supports Everton. No, let's just stay away from Eddie Howe. It's too much of a risk. Again, it's given another manager that potentially could be, a manager that could win things in the future. It's given him that opportunity, and we simply aren't in the position to give a manager another opportunity like that. We need a proven manager that can come in, and that's proven in winning trophies or proven in stabilising teams, and Eddie Howe for me just isn't that. It'd be another risk, it'd be another 4 to 5 year project that we couldn't guarantee it'd work, and that's why I wouldn't go for him. I threw a couple of nonsense managers in there because just in case people asked about them. Mark Hughes is never going to be an Everton manager, and neither is Alan Pardew, but them two decided to throw the names in the hat when Marco Silva was first sacked, but that's not going to happen. Kovac is an interesting one, really interesting one. Obviously ex-Bayern Munich manager. Didn't end well for him at Bayern Munich, but he did have some good spells. He was at Goodison for the game against Chelsea, which I think is the reason as to why we're all talking about him. There's not been any real solid rumours surrounding Kovac and his potential to become Everton manager. There's been no solid offers from Everton. There's been no solid rumours in the media as to say that Kovac could be the next Everton manager. Like I said, the only real bit of information that we've got is that he was at Goodison Park on Saturday to watch us beat Chelsea. A couple of fans got pictures with him. They asked him the question, but we have no solid answer. And I think this is a little bit of a strange situation, really, because like I said, if Carlo Ancelotti was at Goodison next week or the week after next, you'd go, right, okay, he's being rumoured to potentially be involved in wanting the job. He's a manager with loads of credentials. There's rumours left, right and centre, so fair enough, he's at Goodison, that makes sense. But Kovac is a manager that there wasn't really many rumours about them. Well, personally, I spent 90% of my day on Twitter, Everton Twitter, looking through rumours, etc. And I never really seen any rumours surrounding Kovac and a move to Everton and whether he'd potentially take the job. He just was at Goodison Park on Saturday. Now, whether he's just decided to fly in because he wanted to watch Everton, in case he wanted to throw himself in the hat, whether he was just, in and around the city and wanted to come and watch the football, I don't know. But I do find it a little bit strange that there's been no solid rumour surrounding him coming to Everton Football Club. However, he was at Goodison, obviously, watching the game. So you do have to take it into consideration, because I don't think a manager that's currently not in a job would be at a ground of a football club that's currently looking for a manager unless there was something in that story. So you do have to take it into consideration. And the final manager I want to talk about, I want to dive in live comments and then we'll talk about them. Obviously, I'm sure you all know it's Rafa Benitez, and I want to talk about Rafa Benitez in just a second. Holly's life says, if Ancelotti came in, surely he would get the best out of Moise Keane's ability. I agree. I think that would be a big plus in bringing Carlo Ancelotti in. Paul says West Ham and Arsenal. David says 100 applicants my arse, 60 of them must have pieced Sunday League, maybe. Paul says West Ham and Arsenal were playing on Monday Night Football, and Carragher and Benitez talked about Liverpool's Champions League win from 2005 for half an hour. Why doesn't it surprise you, mate? Why doesn't it surprise you? Like you said, Red Sports. Biggie Small says if Big Dunk can make Sigurdsson decent, he can do anything. 1878 says I'd love Simeone if I could choose anyone. Yeah, I haven't put Simeone on the list because I don't think there's enough in it. You could argue that there's not enough in Diao or Kovac or Mark Hughes either, but I haven't put Simeone on the list because I think that would be the ultimate choice, and I think every single Evertonian would want Simeone. But what's his name? Galim Balig or whatever his name is, the Spanish reporter, laughed and said there's absolutely no chance. There is a chance because money talks in football, but I don't think Diego Simeone will be the next Everton manager. David says only 6 more wins. Arteta will come with no pressure and he can learn as he goes. Fair point. Would you like Arteta? Fair point. Lava says Eddie Howe's done great at a small club but not for Everton. I agree. Steve says I think Ancelotti would take us to the next level, mate, if we could get him to become the manager. I agree. He's definitely got the ability to take us to the next level, that's for sure. Paul says Eddie Howe was so overrated. Bournemouth leaked so many chances and goals. Exactly. And you only have to watch Bournemouth over the last couple of weeks to put yourself off the thought of Eddie Howe being the next Everton manager. But no disrespect to him, he's an Everton fan. Of course, he might even be watching. I doubt he's watching, but he might be if he is. Hello, Eddie. Thanks for watching, but you're not the next Everton manager. Goodson says, I agree, he's a statement manager and will make people take note. We can get constantly overshadowed in the media. Spot on, definitely. And David says, great at Bournemouth, but screwed the Burnley job. A lot of rejections happening here from managers that aren't exactly stellar. Exactly. Anyway, Rafa Benitez, listen, I want to talk about Rafa Benitez for just a second, because like somebody mentioned there earlier on, David, I think it was, or Paul, sorry, not David, he was on Monday Night Football on Monday, obviously talking about, he was meant to be talking about West Ham and Arsenal, but he was talking about Everton and Liverpool, because, you can't talk about Everton without talking about Liverpool, but he was talking about Everton. Jamie Carragher was interested in finding out whether he would be interested in the Everton job, obviously with his links to Liverpool Football Club, with his history with Liverpool Football Club. Jamie Carragher asked, would you be interested in becoming the next Everton manager if that opportunity came about? And Rafa Benitez pretty much said what we've been saying about Rafa Benitez over the last week or so when we've been talking about him and the potential that he'd come in, and he basically said I'm a professional, and if there's a job there, I would take it. He said it would mean he'd be closer to home. He's very, very close to the city, not just with Liverpool fans, but he gets a lot of Everton fans praising him for the work that he's done for the city. He went back on his words that he said years and years ago, calling Everton a small club. He said that he didn't mean to say they were a small club. He basically meant to say that they were a small team at the time. So he went back on that. And pretty much what I took for it was Rafa Benitez saying, yeah, I would take the Everton job, and yes, I will be the manager of Everton, and yes, I would do the best that I could whilst I was the manager of Everton, because I'm a professional. And although I've got close ties to Liverpool, I wouldn't let that affect me because I'm a professional. But overarching, he said that he's happy at Chan at the minute. He spoke about the new training ground that he's currently got over at Chan and the project that they've got going, and he said that if the potential was there in the future that he could get a job closer to home and that he could come home and manage Everton, he would, and he doesn't see why not. But at the minute he's happy at China, and he doesn't seem to be thinking that he's going to be moved. Now, whether Everton come in with a massive fat offer and say, yeah, after this come over and manage us, I don't know. I dare say it'd have to be a massive fat offer because he's going to be on an awful lot of money in China. But I think that's probably saying for Rafa Benitez at the minute it's a little bit of a no-go. I think he's probably saying, listen, I'm happy where I am. If in a couple of years' time I decide to leave China and there's still jobbing available, I would more than happily come to Everton and manage Everton. But at the minute, it seems like Rafa Benitez is happy where he is and isn't wanting to be moved from his job at China. So anyway, yeah, that's the discussion. I've said before what are my thoughts on Rafa Benitez. I'd take him. I think he's the only manager in this list that has both had experience winning trophies, Champions Leagues at the highest level, and also had experience, in lower parts of the table, lifting teams out of that danger zone and trying to build confidence of players as he did at Newcastle. So he's the only manager that's got both of those experiences under his belt, and I would take him in Everton regardless of the situation surrounding Liverpool. However, obviously doesn't seem that interested in the job at the minute. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. I want to know from everybody, whether you're watching live now, we'll talk about it for the next couple of minutes, or whether you're watching as a YouTube video. I want to know your ideal candidate would be. Both. Give me two. Give me your ideal candidate, who you would want to come in if we could get anybody in the world, whether they're employed, whether they've ever come to Everton or not, anybody, and give me your realistic candidate who you would like us to see that could potentially come in as well. Like I said, if you're watching a YouTube video, get involved with the comments and try and comment back to as many of them as possible. If you're watching live, let's get them in now before we end the live stream. Big thanks to everybody for watching. Please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed today's live stream. I'll be back on Friday. Now, usually we would obviously do the live game preview tomorrow, and then press conference reaction on Friday. However, I'm busy tomorrow. I've got to go out for my girlfriend's mum's birthday for a meal, or I want to go out for my girlfriend's mum's birthday, so I won't be able to live stream tomorrow. However, I will be live at 6 p.m. on Friday for the live game preview of the game against Manchester United. Big Duncan Ferguson taking charge of Everton once more again. Hopefully we can see a very similar performance and a very similar result to the one against Chelsea last weekend. I will potentially do a live press conference reaction as well to the to Duncan Ferguson's pre-game press conference on Friday, but that'll obviously come after the live game preview. So don't forget to join us at 6 p.m. for the live game preview on Friday. Where are we? Lavin says, Rafa would have been my first choice if it wasn't Dunk, although he effectively ruled himself out. Exactly. Goodsoul says, off the subject, but have you seen Howard's Way? Yeah, I haven't. I've bought it and I've got it there downloaded, and I've been meaning to watch it, but I've just been mad busy over the last few days and weeks. So I'm going to sit down this weekend and I'm going to make a point of watching it. Lavin says, I always felt Rafa was harshly treated at Anfield in Newcastle. Fair enough. 1878 ST says, love to have Simeone, he's honourable at times. I would as well. Eric says, would you take Ancelotti? I definitely would. Goodsoul says, nice one, Cam, great team. Thank you very much, Goodsoul, really appreciate that. Lav says, Duncan Ferguson is the answer to both your questions. Fair point. A lot more people wanting Duncan Ferguson on a permanent basis than I originally expected. And 1878 ST says, yes, Cam, top cruiser. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. It means a massive amount to me. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. It only takes a second, and like I said, it means a massive amount to me. In other news, before we leave, Everton are apparently interested in bringing Zlatan Ibrahimovic in. Now, I've dropped this at the end of the live stream because this live stream wasn't about players, it wasn't about Ibrahimovic, wasn't about talking about rumoured potential transfers, but weirdly, out the blue, Everton have inquired about the possibility of bringing in Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Obviously, they've got quite a good relationship with Mino Raiola, who is Zlatan Ibrahimovic's agent. He's also the agent of Moise Kean. I think one thing that Zlatan would do, he would be able, there's many things he'd do. He's a leader. He's still a very good footballer. He would help Moise Kean as well. Whether his ego would suit the club at the minute, I don't know, but it's definitely interesting. So let me know your thoughts on that one as well. It'd be really interesting to hear what you guys have to say. David says 14 million a year. I believe this still has 2 years on his contract. Don't see us paying that off yet. For Rafa, I don't see it myself. John says, hi, Cam. Hi, Jonathan. Hope we're doing well. Nanda says, all the best, mate. Great team. Where are you going for your for mum's dinner? I think we're going to a Turkish somewhere in Liverpool, Loch Lane-ish, I think. So come and say hello if you want. Rob says, big dunk for a bit, then Simeone or Rafa. Fair point. Hopefully, I'd love to have Simeone. And Lava says, I would welcome ZI's. I'm not too sure who that is. But anyway, yeah. Big thanks for everybody for watching. Please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. It only takes a second. Or Zlatan. I would welcome Zlatan. Yeah. I'd welcome Zlatan probably because it's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And I think he'd do a lot for the football club. Again, that marquee player and that sort of effect it'd have on other players potentially coming in. Whether he come or not, I don't know. Anyway, big thanks to everybody for watching. Do hit that like button if you have enjoyed the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Don't forget to join us at 6 p.m. on Friday for the live game preview, to the game against Manchester United on Sunday. Big Dunk taking charge. Let's hope it's another performance full of passion, fight, urgency, and let's hope the Blues go and get another 3 points. Goodsoul says, get Zlatan in all day. Fair enough. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you have enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.